Well, good morning, everybody. How are we? Who's had a free coffee that I'm picking up the tab on? Who had something to eat as well? And Shane Nealon's picking up the tab for that one. So if you really want to bust the bank, just keep eating lots of food and, Shane will pick up the tab. But we're thrilled to have Dr. Ryan Sherman here. Dr. Robert Hogan, who's 84, still alive and well in Florida, rates Ryan Sherman as the world's leading research organisational psychologist. We agree with that. He's just done an awesome job taking personality data, combining it with 360 data, combining it with the Hogan competency model, which I'm going to introduce you today. And our research is world class. It's just brilliant. We're so proud to have you here, Ryan. Thank you. Shane and I have had to put up with him for dinner on Sunday night in Melbourne, dinner in Adelaide last night. And we said last night in Sydney, would you like to go out for dinner or have a quiet night in your own hotel room? Guess what he said last night? I think, Shane and Peter, I do enjoy your company, but do you mind if I had a night off? So, work out his personality profile based on that one, will you? Okay, I'm going to move fairly quickly here because I've got a great topic here today. Employee retention and engagement. The talent war's never been more difficult. Put your hand up if you agree. Who's struggling at the moment with some of your employment, labour, turnover, the great resignation? Yes. Engagement remains a challenge, and now retention's never been more difficult. So you put the two together. The great resignation, it's a name. I'm seeing it with my clients. We work for big construction engineering companies. Engineers are in very short supply. IT, bit of an issue as well, and so on and so on. Money, I've just done the research. Money's an issue. Flexible hours, career path and development, and a poor leader, a poor culture, a poor team is still one of the reasons there. A case study, one of my clients is based in Melbourne. They're a multinational. Guess what's just happened with them? They did the employee engagement survey. Their results went up. So the whole HR team went out for dinner. Oh, aren't we legends? We're driving culture and engagement and we're getting discretionary effort and great people. And then they looked at their resignation and turnover numbers, up from 2% to 10%. And then they're in tears. That was the end of the dinner party, So can you imagine that quandary? Yes, engagement's up and so is turnover. Okay, who's had the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Robert Hogan? Yeah, he would have been here. We had him coming out 4 years ago and we cancelled because of COVID. He's 84. Shane and I went to the States just 2 months ago. He's still on fire. He stands up and he's irascible and cranky and emotional and passionate, And I want to talk about the core of engagement. You don't have to take notes, but there is an exam at 10:30, okay? And you have to sort of repeat the key Peterberry themes. Bob talks about getting along, getting ahead, and finding meaning. Has anyone ever heard that expression before? Getting along, you're into personal effectiveness, the emotional intelligence in a business, the level of employee engagement. Getting ahead, delivering on the purpose, the goals, the strategy, the KPIs. Finding meaning, get out your blue MVPI. Am I aligned to the organisation? So if you're finance, it might be commerce. If you're an engineer, it's science. And for most of us, it's affiliation, yes? Having a good culture. So I'm going to talk about that concept of getting along and getting ahead today. Who of you are Hogan certified? You've done oh my God, we love you. You're part of the family. Shane and the team have done an awesome job. We now have, are you ready? 8,000 people certified in Australia. From humble beginnings 20 years ago when there was not a single person. And I'm thinking, I have to run a certification workshop. I'm not certified. Well, I was really, but I said to Shane, you can do that. I said, you can better study up. You know all this stuff from when she was using it at Qantas. So I always use blue. I start with the blue when I'm doing coaching and a leadership program. It's less confronting than starting with the HPI in case the yellow adjustment and ambition is a little bit low. I call blue idealised self. Who's the person you want to be? I challenge my clients to do a 5-year personal plan. Health, wealth, family, career, hobbies, travel, to pick up on your key MVPIs. So it's a really cool tool. Bob Hogan says the HPI, the behaviours that are going to help you get along. Does that make sense? The behaviours that will help you get along and get ahead. Can anyone guess which of the HPI scales is the one about getting ahead? Ambition, well done. You get a strong latte at 10:30. All right, well done. And Bob talks about the HDS, the behaviours that will stop you from getting along and getting ahead. The derailers, and I'll give you a bit of research later on. Can I just tell you, if I've got a 6-month coaching session, I keep coming back to the red flags associated with the HTS. Are some of you using the red flags document? Or if you're not, tell me and we'll get it for you, because that's well and truly testing someone's self-awareness. So we're getting the best version of them. All right, so let me share a bit of research from Gallup. Gallup, you know, are a global research and engagement data collection. Please write this down. 70% of the variance in engagement in a team or a workforce can be attributed to the immediate manager. I mean, that statistic blows me out of the water. You know, that the leader can have 70% of the impact on the performance and the culture of the team, the decision-making, the accountability, the strategy. So if leadership is 70% of the impact, do you think that leadership should be measurable and improvable? Do you think corporates should be taking leadership seriously? Do you think leadership development should be in the strategic plan? And hopefully we're going tick, tick, tick. Very good. Okay, the middle level slide tells you the outcomes of engagement. So can I give you one of my little quotes? Leadership drives engagement, and engagement drives performance. So there it is. Put that to the CEO, put that to your executive team. That's proven. And this is one of my favourite quotes. Bob Hogan has better quotes than me. He'll spend his time doing breakfast, you know, getting a paragraph down to a single sentence. I'm nearly catching up. So this is one of my better ones. Leadership is consequential, measurable, and improvable. You with me? That ought to be the mindset you take when we're doing work in that leadership space. Disengagement. Oh, I love this topic. And if I get a bit passionate, you know, maybe show a bit of energy or adrenaline, might even stand on a chair if I get really excited. But the majority of global survey providers, whether it's Glint, Culture Amp, Aon Hewitt, they all agree that 1 in 3 employees are disengaged globally. Does that make sense? This is a pandemic, it's a crisis, it's a disgrace. It's absolutely just a massive headache to think that 1 in 3 of your people are disengaged. How do we know that? There's typically 2 questions. Would you take another job down the road if it came up? And 1 in 3 say yes. Or would you recommend this place to somebody else as a good place to work? And they go no. So 1 in 3. These people are typically ready to quit their boss. You know, who's ever seen a bad leader? You know, you can put 2 hands up. Yeah, okay, we got 2 hands going up here. Who's ever seen a dysfunctional team? There was infighting, lack of accountability, people weren't calling stuff out, the CEO had a blind eye, you know, whatever it was. And who's ever sort of seen someone that said, you know what, I don't think I'm in the right role. You know, maybe it's time for me to think about something a little bit different. Okay, half of the 1 in 3 who are disengaged share their misery with others. Guess what they do? They drink vinegar for breakfast. They suck lemons for morning tea. They have victim mentality. All right, they have a complaining disposition. So here's the maths question. You've got to pass a cognitive test. 1 in 3 are disengaged. Half of those are sharing their misery. So the ratio of sharing your misery is 1 in 6. Someone over here gets a free coffee too. All right, there's the stats. Who's ever seen some of these people? You know, they do it very discreetly, don't they? In the car park or the kitchen or the one-on-one. They tend to target people that they think they might be vulnerable. All right, so that's a huge job for us. Later on, we're going to give you a little case study on Shell. We're very lucky to partner with Shell. We've been working with them globally for 6 years now. They use the Hogan 360. And I'm very proud to tell you that the PBC team have designed the IP that sits behind it, and Hogan put their name on it. It's now in 20 languages. We're about to do a 360 refresh. It's going to be launched in August. It'll have a new look. I'm low aesthetics, but even I'm excited about the high aesthetics associated with the new look. New content, retired some old content. Who's used the 360? I tell you what, we're going from a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. And we've done a global research. No one else will be able to hold a candle on ours. Just quickly with Shell, Shell have a very strong people and business analytics team. If I can just have your concentration for a moment, analytics is understanding the causal link between the impact of a leader on team engagement and business outcomes. All right, analytics is understanding that causal link. So what does Shell do? See the second dot point there? I think I'm going to be, oops, I've gone back. The second dot point there, Shell's data shows that the immediate leader and the leader 1 up has that consequential impact on the team. So what did Gallup say it is? 70, and what does Shell say? 50, split the difference, or why don't we say at least 50%? of the impact on a team comes from that leader. That's why we're so passionate. Look at the third dot point. Shell were rather sneaky. You know they're an engineering business, so you know they've got engineers all around the world that do this stuff. We shifted a poor team leader to a high-performing team. What do you reckon it did to that high-performing team within 6 months? Killed it. Then we took a really good leader and put them in charge of a dysfunctional team. What happened in 90 days? The team was turning around. So Shell said, right, we've got this validated case study, put it to the C-suite executives, and like I said, they're our biggest client, 4,500 360s every year. Now, here's the last point that's interesting. For the first 5 years, Shell said we want our leaders to be at the 50 percentile for a 360 score, because we have those strategic cut-offs. We can tell where you are. They're now raising the bar. Our leaders have a stretch goal to be at the 75th percentile. Isn't that fascinating? They want to have the best leaders in the world. They want to have the best leaders in their industry. And not everyone's there yet. It's going to take the next couple of years. And you've got to create the trust around the 360. We trust the process and the scoring, but I think that's best practice that's coming. So what target would you set if you were coaching or doing a leadership program for those leaders? That's the Australian women's cricket team. I am naturally a very humble person. There's not much bold in my HTS. I think it's only 90 or something like that. But ever since I worked with the female cricket team 4 years ago in Brisbane at the Sports Academy, an amazing bunch of people, seriously. The captain, the vice captain, Elise Perry, the whole gang. Ever since we did that Hogan Self and Other Awareness workshop, they've not lost a World Cup. So that's Peter Berry, just influencing. At least that's what I tell my daughters, and they go, yeah, sure, Dad, yeah, okay. So here's another quote of mine, a memorable quote. Leadership is about results. Teams deliver results, judge the leader by the team. When I'm coaching and I put that to a leader, there's a light bulb moment. Because guess what their whole career has been about? Me as the strong individual contributor, me as the engineer, me running the operations. And you can see the change in paradigm. It's about my team. So the best leaders care more about their teams than they do about themselves. And leadership is learnable. The best leaders are the ones that keep learning. Okay, so there's plenty of room to do out there. Who's ever seen a dysfunctional team? What did that feel like? Horrible? You didn't want to be there? There was no trust, backstabbing? Who's ever been part of a high-performing team? And what was that experience? Great to be part of the team. Hey, we're out there having fun, you know, doing our job, living the purpose and delivering on the dream. Okay, this looks like a turgid slide. We have a LEAP model. It's an acronym: leadership drives engagement, engagement drives performance. One of the unique things about my beautiful team at PBC, any of that first column, measuring and improving leadership effectiveness, measuring and improving team effectiveness, is connected to delivering strategic business KPI outcomes. We don't do it so we can tick a box and say, we've done something this year on leadership. And how do you deliver business outcomes? Through the third column, people. Hiring the best, onboarding, having them motivated, getting discretionary effort. Now, if you're doing a leadership program, you've got to have the three legs of that stool all coordinated. You with me? If one leg is missing, something's wrong with your intervention. All right? So improving leadership is to create a better culture through which it enables superior business performance. Is that making sense to you? Just intuitively, you know. All right, so what have we got here? Now, a big question. A couple of years ago, someone said to me, Peter, how do you measure leadership? And I said, look, there's only three metrics. You do personality, you do 360 or multi-rater, and you do the high-performing team assessment. Does that make sense? You know, so the individuals are getting their Hogan and their 360, and it's strategically in a percentile or a cut-off point measured against others, and the team assessment does the other. So they're the only three tools available to you. And if we have a perfect world, they're the three tools we use with our clients. And just remember, the 360 and the HPTA, that's what I call this one, they are repeatable. You wouldn't really do the personality within 5 years unless something's really changed. But you could get a team score now and say, right, where do we want to go? We're at the 50th percentile, let's aim for the 75th. So that's good. Now, a bit of research for you. And Dr. Lynn Cruikshank here, she is my rock. She's sitting over in a corner, I think. I saw her somewhere. Did she shift? Where'd she go? Oh, she's sitting over here. Oh, there she is here. Lynn, stand up for 1 second. No, she's not going to stand up. All right. Recognition is 0. Sociability is 2. So she's a bit like Ryan Sherman. Give me research rather than dinner with Peter and Shane. You know, it's that approach to what we want to do. We have 29,000 360s in our database, and there's a table called Strengths and Opportunities. I asked Lynn to pull out the top 100 leaders. These would be like at the 95th percentile. You with me? Like these leaders, we would get the executive headhunters to bring them in and recruit them and place them. There's an opportunities table. These are the challenges for the top 100. So if you have really good leaders, they're taking on too much, spreading themselves too thin, they've got to delegate more, challenge performance, be more assertive. I call the first 2 better workload management. And you know what the challenge is? I'm spending too much time in the business, not enough time on the business. I'm being too operational, tactical, I'm not being strategic. That's the big challenge for our best leaders. Challenge poor performance. This comes up in Japan, Canada, the UK, everywhere we go, it's a top 3 issue. So who are your bottom 10%? And what are you doing to improve or remove them in the next 90 days? That'll be in the strategic business plan. Because guess who gets really frustrated with a poor performing co-worker? The co-workers, don't they? They just hate it. Why isn't the manager doing something about this? So we can all get fired up. Now, having shared what the best leaders look like, a little secret for you, it can't go outside of this room. Do you want to know what the worst leaders look like? You know, the bottom 100 in Lynn's database. Fasten your seatbelt. I should be getting you to guess, but I'll show you the data. That's what the bottom 100 look like, their top opportunities to improve. What do you reckon their challenge is? EQ, someone said EQ, emotional intelligence, absolutely. What about Bob Hogan's concept of getting along and getting ahead? Do you reckon they get along? They don't get along. What do you reckon their interpersonal effectiveness is like? What do you reckon they go building a high-performing team with a strong employee engagement? So I make up a metaphor here. Here's Fred. He's been out in the warehouse 20 years. He knows everything operational and he's hard-working. He gets materials in and out. What can't he do? People. And they always complain about Fred. Doesn't communicate, doesn't make us feel valued and so on. Who's ever seen a leader here that faced those challenges? Yeah, 2 hands? Just sort of, oh yeah, all right, good. All right, so everybody in this room, I'm talking to the converted. We've got a job for life, haven't we? Fixing these issues, addressing to these issues. Okay, now a little bit of thought leadership for you, because I love to learn and study, and Shane and I visited America 2 months ago to work for about 3 weeks with the Hogan family, and luckily enough, Dr. Hogan. Purpose. Can I be a little bit controversial? And I don't want to upset anyone. Mission and vision statements are gone. They're dead. They never really cut it. Executives going away for 3 days in the Blue Mountains, mission statement, vision statement. You go back to staff. Staff have got glazed eyes and said, gee, I hope you enjoyed the golf and the food, because that just doesn't cut it for us, all right? So the purpose statement, Queensland Fire Brigade, we save lives. Fisheries Victoria, fish forever. You've really, and it's more important than ever, what is your current futuristic purpose statement? All right? And I'll give you a clue. How does the organisation impact people's lives? What difference, what social good do you do? Younger people these days are looking for the purpose statement. At the interview, where's your purpose statement? Where do I fit in? What can I contribute? So please revisit the purpose statement. Strategy. Is your strategy sustainable? Is future success clearly defined? Are you aiming for industry leadership? So people have got to be exciting about, what does success look like? What does winning look like if you had to have a 1-page business plan? And then you've got to say it 7 times, 7 ways. Otherwise people don't get it. They've forgotten about it, The third one, are you values supported by the behaviours you want and the behaviours you do not want? I think behaviours really bring your values to life. And if you haven't done that yet, go back and think about, what would staff say are those behaviours we want? I'll give you the 2 ones most staff don't like. They hate a lack of teamwork. Silos, backfighting, them and us. And the other one is commitment or dedication. They don't like people who are working to rule, cruising, making mistakes, poor work ethic. Are you hiring and promoting the best people? Do you know at PBC we're so proud? We came second in the annual financial review for the graduate selection program for New South Wales Government. The 2 previous years we were first. ANZ knocked us off this year, but we're going to knock them off next year. So we've just done an amazing job. We love working with New South Wales Government. It's just awesome. And then, do you have a future-focused, compelling EVP? EVP stands for Employee Value Proposition. You've got to reshape your EVP now because the whole world's been turned upside down. Remember, working from home, development opportunities, what can we do around pay, plus the culture. It's got to be a compelling EVP that will engage prospective employees and retain current people. A bit of research. Who likes research? You like to know what's trendy and what's going on out there. Lynn picked the C-suite executives, CEOs, board members, people who report to a CEO, and we picked them at the 75th percentile. In other words, they're getting really superior 360 results. This is leadership. This is senior leadership, best practice. They're achievement focused. They're very sort of competitive about delivering on the organisation's purpose and goals. They're strategic, big picture, long-term, innovative. They're inspiring. They motivate people. They bring energy to the table, and they've got emotional intelligence. They're positive and resilient. So that's not a bad little set of competencies to teach, is it? And you know what? That's all in the 360 and the personality. You can use those measurements, and we come back to it. Does that sound like a good leader? Yes or no? Yeah, who'd like to work for a leader like that? Absolutely. All right, so in terms of Bob Hogan, getting along as being inspiring and emotionally intelligent. Those descriptors here are actual items from our 360. In case you're not familiar with the 360 or you're a little bit dusty there. So we do actually test with very good items those competencies. Does that all resonate with you? If we were to say someone was inspiring, if we were to say someone's emotionally intelligent, and then achievement focused, that's what we mean, and strategic is also defined. So they would be meta competencies and items that we would use. And you know what? If you're doing a high potential program, succession planning, you'd be aiming to develop some of that capability in those people. Now, global coaching trends. I love to stay abreast of all the latest global coaching trends. The major thing I subscribe to is a document called Coach Source, Source. It's based in London. Brilliant data, what's happening in the coaching movement, who's spending money and what competencies are we trying to build. These are the 4 hottest competencies in the world. These are the ones that are really in demand when organisations are spending money. So they might say we're doing a leadership program, we're doing a coaching intervention, we really want to... executive presence, it's not just the way you look or dress or do your hair. I call that having gravitas, delivering on the organisation's purpose, showing passion around what we're here to do. And I'll define this later on. Who's ever seen a leader that demonstrated executive presence? They could hold an audience, in the palm of their hand. They've got a story to tell. I've got one of my favourite CEOs sitting on this corner over here, Stephen Forby. Stephen's been a brilliant leader at TAFE, New South Wales. Before that, Harbour City Ferries. I used to love getting a free ride with him when we can go out and talk about leadership. But he would demonstrate executive presence wherever he went. You could hear a pin drop in the room when people would listen to his narrative. Emotional intelligence, I think we all know that. If you're familiar with the HPI, you look at adjustment and interpersonal sensitivity. Otherwise, leadership is learnable. We have to coach the EQ. You've got vision and strategy, big picture, get up on the balcony, look at the dance floor. What are we here to do? Where's the 5-year lens? And influencing others. Influencing is a meta competency. I was actually a bit surprised to see how many organisations are now saying we've got to teach our senior people influencing. So I'll give you my definition and then it might make more sense. Getting results through others. That's what influencing is. So what do you say to a young graduate who's an engineer at the age of 28? Get results off your own bat. Prove that you're a hard-working, competent engineer. Then we put you in a small team. You might be a team leader of 2 people. Okay, we'll make sure those 3 people are fine engineers. Then you get put in charge of a whole project. a $200 million project, and I'm a project manager at the age of 35, influencing others, getting results through others. Very important. Now, our 360 data, some of you familiar with the 360 would know that we use a 7-point scale. Better than a 5-point scale, you get more elasticity. And what Lynn has done is given me beautiful cut-offs and benchmarks. So a typical 360 score is 5.7. That's a healthy, decent score. It's respectable, it's good. Gold medal is 5.9. Walk on water is 6.2. So you can actually give that person that number. This is how you're seen by your 10 to 14 raters. Now, 5 gets you, unfortunately, at the bottom 10 percentile. Does that make sense? And we've always seen these people, haven't we? Someone who you're saying, well, they're not much. So here's a challenge. If we're thinking futuristically, the ones at 5 and below, should we be saying we're going to improve you or remove you in the next 90 days? Should there be a serious coaching intervention? No, and I always ask the person, what's your motivation to improve? Will you put in the deliberate practice? Just 2 or 3 goals. How will your boss support you? And how would we measure your progress? Maybe a second 360, 6 months on. The 5.9, should that be an aspirational goal if we're doing the second or third round of a leadership intervention or a coaching program? Does that make sense? Why not try to get the best out of our leaders and really challenge them to step up there? And I think doing both of those, is that going to help us drive an organisation that's got strong employee engagement? I think you will. Better team leaders and so on. Okay, now I had a couple of busy slides, but they were too busy. In our research with Ryan Sherman, we've looked at the personality data and the 360 data, and we've looked at the subscales in the personality data. There are 5 subscales. If you are familiar with some of this Hogan data in a little bit of detail, that have the highest correlation with a good 360. Does that make sense? So we're digging into subscales, not the overarching scales. Public confidence. Can anyone guess which of the Hogan scales that one sits inside? It's one of the HDSs. Colourful. All right. Then you've got self-confidence. Where does that come from? Yellow, ambition. You've got leadership, which comes from yellow, ambition. You've got competitive, which comes from yellow, ambition. That's why I rightly or wrongly say ambition is the baseline measure of your leadership potential. It's the leadership scale. And then you've got generates ideas. Can anyone think about which of the yellow scales that one sits inside? Inquisitive. All right. So those are the 5 that really give someone a leg up if you're looking for a 3 good 60. Does that make sense to you? If you had a leader that could demonstrate those 5, you know, amazing what a team it would be. Awesome. Okay, the Hogan competency model. Who's heard of the Hogan competency model? Maybe a couple of you have heard of it. If any of you would like access to it, contact me or Shane or whoever your business development or consultant is. We're very open about sharing. Ryan Sherman and his team have done an absolutely brilliant, awesome, amazing job. We have 62 world-validated competencies based on academic research, business research, research back to the 360 and the Hogan data. So we have this wonderful competency model and very happy to share it with you. In the last year, we've actually spent some time working with a few of our clients developing that competency model. So you tell us the attributes, the skill sets, what you want. We map it back to this. And I'm going to show you a little bit of data in a moment. Of the 62, 56 have the highest correlation with the HPI. So the HPI is absolutely the starting point for selection. All right. Then 55, if you get a low H360 score, it's a HDS. So guess what I've said here? The HPI and HDS are both doing their jobs. Does that make sense? We can predict the good behaviour, the toxic behaviour, and away we go. Now, the correlations of these 62, adjustment had 15, ambition 20, sociability 4, interpersonal sensitivity 6, prudence 14, inquisitive 0. Why? Because it's the generating ideas subscale, not the rest of it, that tells you what's going on. And learning approach had 4. Can I just say, interpersonal sensitivity was second to adjustment every single time around people skills. All right, they're like two cousins, resilience and people skills. So guess what I talk about here? I want to share my wisdom with you. Adjustment and interpersonal sensitivity, 21 there of the 62, that's emotional intelligence. All right, that's how you're looking for emotional intelligence, the baseline. Ambition is 20, that's the leadership capability. Prudence, in a word, would be conscientiousness. You know, safety, good organisational citizenship, compliance, and so on. Interesting data. I hope you're sort of saying, wow, that's pretty amazing data. Now, if I mentioned the HPI and the HDS are doing their reds, the red is having a negative correlation with a poor 360. You got me? So people who struggle to get a good 360, it's those first 4 or 5 reds. Does that make intuitive sense? It's the moving away, so to speak. Look at excitable and look at self-management. Can you see that correlation, 0.21? You know, does that make sense to you? The excitable person is not self-regulating. Look at the cautious person, 3 down. They can't work on the business, 0.145. They're not confident enough to be that leader. They're not confident enough. They're sitting on the fence, you know, sort of they've got that fear of failure driving them. Look at the reserved person. The reserved person is struggling to do relationships. Why? They put work ahead of people. They're tough, cold, aloof, distant, and so on. Notice colourful is good for relationship management and working on the business. I would call those the leadership areas. Interesting data, just so that if you're using these tools, you've got a few insights. Now, I want to share with you, and we're going to send you the PowerPoint. Everybody happy to get the PowerPoint? So you can take notes and play around and all of that. These here, of the 62 competencies, these 10 have the highest correlation with the HPI scale ambition. All right, and ambition is defined as measuring leadership potential. You with me? It's not to say leadership can't be learned, right? So they're in order of the strongest correlation with ambition. Read those, and I want to ask you a question. Do you think that's a good, business-like, succinct definition of leadership? Yes or no? Plain English, business speak, put it up, you know, in front of a, I love it. And if you had to break it down, leading others for results. That's what you'd be finding then. A couple of more slides. That's EQ, the strongest correlations from adjustment and interpersonal sensitivity. Do you like that as a definition of EQ? Yeah, authenticity. The authenticity, I think, is actually a combination of executive presence and driving the purpose of the organisation, living the values of the organisation, and demonstrating some EQ. Yeah, I think it's in there. Yes, and yeah. And the third one I want to show you is conscientiousness. This comes from prudence. You get the prudence scale? These are the highest behavioural correlations with prudence. Now, high prudence is necessary when you're doing governance, audit, quality assurance, and so on. Low prudence is necessary if you're being entrepreneurial. So there's, you know, good and bad associated with high and low. Can I just say to you, in the HPI, 90% of the time I'm using 4 scales. It's adjustment, ambition, interpersonal sensitivity, and prudence. They're the ones you really... Okay, so my last slide. Retention and engagement should be strategic business issues. The CEO, the head of your department or agency, should be really paying attention to it strategically. It can't be just HR. Employee engagement, you should be aiming for top quartile and turnover below industry standard. The cost of each resignation is 50K or more. So think about your current turnover, do the numbers, and you'll see that the CFO will pay attention. And remember, once we get out of this COVID period and the labour market opens up a little bit more, improving leadership and team effectiveness is the long-term driver of engagement. All right, thank you so much for listening to me and letting me have a little half hour to talk to you.